Welcome back, everybody. I am Nick Fire.
And I'm MarcTheTruth.
And this is the FireTruth Nerdcast. Our final episode, which was a continuation of our very first. This is going to be on Star Wars The Acolyte, episodes 6 through 8, the finale. And boy, do I think we have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Now, we're hoping this time, just to get everybody caught up, we're hoping this time that our audio is finally figured out and that we sound really good. Because even though I'm really proud of our other podcasts, I've been very upset with the audio quality. So I think that now we got new, nice mics. There, you shouldn't hear as much background noise. We ditched Zoom because fuck that shit. It was distorting our voices horribly. And we got Riverside, which is a full-on podcasting service. So we should sound amazing and hopefully somewhat professional. I already fucked up. Professional.
Can't even say professional.
Yeah, right. So we're already screwed here. But yeah, hopefully we sound more professional and not so amateurish, because we have some pretty, incredible things to say if you listen. So that's really all I have to say. I'm just happy that we're doing better this week, that we got things hopefully figured out. Mark, how has your week been?
Week's been okay. My girlfriend's brother got here yesterday, and then he took off to go to some plane convention, like airplanes. So he'll be gone till Sunday, but then she picked up her mother today, so she'll be here to help with the baby and visit and hang out. So I think we have some stuff planned later in the week, but other than that, not a whole lot.
Well, that's good. It's good to hear. Family's in town. That's why we are going to be recording 2 podcasts today. Just give everybody a little behind the scenes. We're going to be doing Deadpool 1 and 2 as well, because Deadpool Wolverine is coming out this Friday. So we're going to do that. But right now, it's all about Star Wars, the controversial Acolyte. Why is this show controversial? I'll never understand.
Because people are dumb.
Yeah. So let's get into it, because we don't have any background to talk about. Let's just get right into it here. Episode 6, Teach, Corrupt. So Osha awakens in an unfamiliar place to find herself trapped on an island located on an unknown world, and carefully follows who we were calling the Sith before. Now we know his name is just the Stranger. She's following the Stranger after seeing him in the distance. When I saw this, I thought that planet was Ahch-To.
So did I.
Last Jedi, I think it was.
Yep.
And, if you guys don't know what Ahch-To is, it's the planet that Luke was hiding on in the sequel trilogy. But I don't know if you saw this, Mark, but Leslie Headland confirmed it wasn't the same place. It was just an inspiration and setting.
Yeah. And it's most likely Beldemic.
True, which is a cortosis mining planet, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. And in Legends, it was the planet in which Plagueis and his master, Darth Tenebris, hung out, basically. It was their headquarters, per se.
That's really interesting. And I mean, we see Darth Plagueis later in the show, which we'll definitely have a lot of insight to get into on that. But he wasn't in this episode.
No.
So let's just keep going. Master Soul leaves Kofar with May on board and tries to contact Coruscant, but the transmission won't go through. May remembers the halls of the ship where she was tested to be a Jedi as a child, while our little they, Basil, suspiciously sniffs around. He knows that May is not Osha. How do you still feel about the whole they thing, Mark?
I feel like it was done and over with after that one episode, and everyone
because there was no credibility to it whatsoever.
And my thing
people
is, like,
losing their mind over stupid shit.
And now, he was an important character. He helped them get to where they were in that episode. But now he's almost become more of an important character because he's the only one that knows that that's not OSHA.
Yeah, at that time, he is the only one that doesn't know because, and that was a controversial thing right there. There was a lot of people that were really upset. Like, Master Soul is literally a Jedi Master. Why does he not sense that isn't OSHA? But you guys, like, you got to remember, like, that was kind of the point. He had just gone through some traumatic shit. Like, he just saw all of these Jedi get slaughtered, just fought this guy who's like the first Sith basically in generations. You think he's really worried about, his mind is probably so clouded he can't even sense right now.
No. And he probably is looking at it like, okay, they're all dead. OSHA's alive. Basically, my daughter is alive because that's how he views her. But as we do learn, they're basically the same person no matter what.
Yeah.
So,
which that as well, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. That as well basically proves why he couldn't sense the difference. Yeah. Because they are the same person.
There is no difference.
They have the same, whatever energy you would call it in the Force, it's probably identical.
Well, they're
so that also explains
in
it
the
too.
Force.
Yeah, the virgins. So May, taking advantage of this opportunity, tries to assassinate Master Soul, but stops when he turns around and asks her to fly the ship because she can't get away with it then without a fight. So she just plays along with pretending to be OSHA. Basil fixes Pip. So thank God, because I like Pip, my little Game Boy Color looking dude. And OSHA, back on the Octus-like planet, she continues to stalk the stranger. And it's kind of funny because they showed like a parallel where she was also kind of stalking to try and assassinate the stranger. Just like her sister was trying to assassinate Soul. But then when the stranger goes for a swim, OSHA steals his lightsaber. But he already knew she was there. Mm-hmm. He begins his manipulation. Now, what did you think of the naked, sexy Sith?
I thought that part of it was kind of unnecessary. But at the same time, they wrote it in a way where it's her seduction to the dark side. So it makes sense, but I felt like it was unnecessary to have the scene where like he's standing in front of her naked. Like,
it was different for Star Wars.
Yeah.
We'd never seen anything like that before. That's for sure. I didn't necessarily hate it. I was laughing at all the memes that came out of it.
Yeah.
The naked, sexy Sith memes.
After watching it, like it does make sense as to why they did it. 'Cause it's supposed to be her seduction to the dark side.
Right. Exactly. Which is a way in that we've never seen before. Where she's
with
like
actual seduction.
Yeah, actual like seduction, because I definitely felt some like sexual tension between OSHA and the stranger throughout these last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's where it's going to be heading into with season 2, is we're finally going to get to see like a dark side relationship, which to my knowledge, we've never actually seen before.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe, I'm sure somewhere in Legends, but at least in the Disney canon, I don't think this is the first show that's ever really explored like dark side characters as the main characters. So it'll be interesting to see eventually if that happens. But the stranger talks about like, he wants a special relationship between a master and a pupil. That's what he wants. And he's just trying to manipulate OSHA through seduction and, obviously trying to manipulate her in the sense of saying like, you are part of the Force. Like, don't let the Jedi control how you feel or how strong you think you are.
And how you use it either.
Yeah. It was interesting to see that. So, moving on. Master Soul hugs May, apologizes to her, says it's time for him to face the High Council. He still thinks May is OSHA. Mm-hmm. Then suddenly the ship power dies, because of course it does. And the thing with Coruscant was interesting because Master Venestra is there, and this was kind of the beginning of showing, not the beginning, but I think this was maybe the first time they showed in this series how the Jedi, besides for Venestra lying, it showed Venestra being upset about this Senator Raincourt guy.
Yeah.
And Senator Raincourt will definitely play a bigger role in the next few episodes. But she was upset about him gaining support. Now, we saw that kind of earlier, I want to say in episode 4, where she was a little leery of the Senate and the Jedi's relationship being so close. So it's kind of cool to see 100 years earlier, before the Jedi had gotten so involved in politics, that this was kind of the beginning where the senator, this guy specifically, seems to be leading the charge of the fact that he's against the Jedi, or doesn't trust them.
Yeah, he doesn't want them to be part of the Senate.
And then, I don't know if you know anything about this, but, she has this hyperspace sickness, Vernestra, and she can't travel through, or she can travel through hyperspace, but it makes her, anxious because she has some sort of trauma from the books. Did you know about that?
No, I mean, technically the show was my first introduction to her sickness with hyperspace, but obviously in the book they had mentioned it before, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so in the books, from my understanding, Vernestra is actually like a kid.
What?
Because the High Republic books are like the early High Republic, I think, or like middle-ish. She's not like this Jedi Master. I think she's just a Padawan. And she, like the High Republic is kind of about this great event where things, like, I can't remember exactly how it went, but something happened where like hyperspace just got like wrecked. When people were in hyperspace, like it just, something fucked up from those Raider dudes. And so she has a lot of like trauma from that time, I guess. And that's like what they were talking about. And that's kind of something I like. That's kind of something I like about this show, is how they're actually using some of the High Republic canon stuff and just doing little nods to it in the Acolyte. So anyways, the stranger tells Osha that he was once a Jedi a really long time ago. Now, when I heard that, I wasn't sure. I was like, uh-oh, does this guy know immortality already? Like, what's going on with this guy? Why would you say a really long time ago? But then you end up finding out pretty much, because I think it's inferred and even said, he's pretty much Venestra's Padawan.
Yeah. So it was like 20 years ago. Not really, really, really long.
Not a really long time ago. But, he's just trying to get in Osha's head when he's saying all that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting to see him as Vernestra's Padawan. It also explains, like, the whip marks on his back.
Yeah, which I think season 2 we might get into that.
Oh, like, maybe that's going to be one of the main plot points of season 2.
I'm guessing something happened where he turned on her and she got the upper hand, and then he just disappeared.
Or she turned on him.
Or she's actually one of the bad guys.
I think is what's going to end up being the case.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that when we get into the later episodes. For now, May investigates the ship's power outage and is attacked by Basil and Pip. I thought that was kind of funny. Mm-hmm. Where Pip, like, he shoots his little, like, oil or whatever in her, and then Basil, like, kicks her. And then she grabs Pip and factory resets his little ass. So now he serves her instead of Osha.
Yeah.
And Basil just kind of runs off after that. While that's happening, the stranger continues to manipulate Osha. Just masterclass manipulation. And he's kind of making the dark side seem sensible and reasonable to her, which for her it is, because she is someone that's holding a lot of anger and hate inside of her. How did you like seeing the scene where OSHA's claiming she's not easily corrupted, and then when he puts the lightsaber up to his chest and says, like, do it, kill me, and then he starts telling her about why the Jedi threw her away, and then she just brings the lightsaber up to his throat. I thought that scene was freaking cool.
Yeah, I think it was, I think it was compacted into one episode, seeing her seduction to the dark side. Like, it's something that might have been better suited for 2 episodes. Because it was a very quick transition. But it does make sense that she's the one that's more prone to the dark side, because even May questioned the whole time when she was doing it, and she instantly just kind of flipped and was like, "No, fuck you, I'm gonna kill you, and then I'm gonna go kill them."
And I mean, once May, once she knew that her sister was alive, she basically gave up.
Yeah, she's like, I don't need to do this.
She really wasn't interested anymore, because she thought that, her sister was dead, her whole family was dead. But OSHA, the whole time, she's been carrying this like weight and burden in her, and that's why the Jedi threw her away. So I definitely get what you're saying. I agree that it could have been 2 episodes of this, or more manipulation from him than just this. But it does make sense, because she's just, like you said, more prone to the dark side.
Yeah, she has
of
more
all her
reason.
Anger and hate.
Because not only did, she doesn't know what happened to her family, and then she finally gets to go live her dream where she gets to be a Jedi and do what they do, and then they tell her, like, basically no, and shun her away.
Yeah, I love the scenes with all the manipulation and the emotion that the actors showed, which, again, I can't understand why people say the actors in this are horrible. Have you seen the prequels?
I don't.
Have you seen the sequels? Like, I thought The Acolyte was one of the better Disney shows, or just better Disney products.
Yeah, and there's going to be things that, as we go on, that I don't agree with, but
right, me too.
There's such minute things compared to what everyone's blowing out of proportion.
Yeah, like, because when I go on, and I know not to like trust the internet, but when I go on X or I go on Facebook, I've just been curious, on IGN or something. I'll just click the comments section, and I can't believe how many hundreds of comments I've seen of people just being like, "This is the worst writing I've ever seen in my entire life. This whole show is garbage." And you're garbage.
I think what it comes down to is a lot of people listen to the people that are reviewing it and don't watch it themselves.
Honestly, that's something that happened with, I don't know if you know anything about this, but The Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
That game had a shitload of controversy, and people thought a certain thing was in the game that wasn't, and were hating on it because of this thing, because it was a bunch of people who never fucking played the game.
That were just talking about it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the people don't know the difference between canon and Legends.
No.
And that's what they're saying the issue is. And it's like, they're taking Legends, making it canon. So you can't be mad at how they're doing it. They're doing it their own way.
And there's a lot of, I hate to be this way, but there's a lot of old heads that just can't give up their Legends, and they're just hating on shit that's different from Legends. And some of the stuff that they did different from Legends is better than Legends, which is hilarious.
And like, you can have your Legends, you can read them, they're still there.
Yeah.
But to shit on a show that's bringing Legends and rewriting it in a way, I would look at it this way: when Dave Filoni does it, it's fine. Which there's things that Dave Filoni did and mentioned before this show did, and people hated it in the show, but didn't question it when he said it.
Right. There's things that happened in this show that people, like, we'll get to a certain scene, we'll talk about it later, but there's certain things that happen in this show that, like you said, happened in other things. And people, like the witches we talked about.
Yeah.
The witches have been around since the 80s.
Yeah.
And people are like, this is horrible. This is feminism. This is sexist. It's like, what? I don't think you people know anything anymore.
No.
But getting back to our episode 6. So that manipulation happens. I love the emotion. I love what we saw with Osha and the stranger. When it comes back to the ship, Basil sneaking through the vents while Sol and May kind of confront each other. And this is the part when Sol figures out that this is May based on like the way she's acting and the questions she's asking. And she's asking about what happened on Brendock, all these things. Like, these are things that Osha never would have asked him. And that's how he figured it out.
No.
No?
Oh, I was saying no in like agreeance that like these are things Osha wouldn't ask about.
Yeah, right. These are not things that she would be asking about. So it makes sense. And like you said, what I didn't even think about the fact that because their aura is the same, he can't tell the difference.
Yeah, he can't sense the difference. And
plus, on top of the fact that you see him emotionally struggling with what he just went through. It's like exactly 2 things in once.
Like, so he just witnessed all of the Jedi that went with him die. Yeah. And essentially, Quimir got what he wanted, where he destroyed the will of a Jedi. Yeah, because you basically just broke Sol.
You break Sol, you kill a bunch of Jedi. I mean, you steal his girl, basically, his daughter. A lot of shit just happened.
Yeah.
Now he finds out he's with May. And when she returns to fly the ship after their discussion and he kind of waves her off saying she's too young to hear the story, he knocks her out, turns the transmitter off, and blasts off to Brendock. This is when Vernestra and her team of Jedi arrive to investigate Kofar. And this is when they find the evidence of the place. They start investigating what happened. And this is when Vernestra and her team find all of the bodies of the Jedi, Jackie, Yord, and the rest of them. And she starts sensing, you know, what happened. That was a pretty neat... I like that in this show, and it's something I said before, I feel like they use the Force more cleverly than any other Star Wars
it's
property.
Just not push-pull.
Right, not push-pull, throw your lightsaber and bring it back to you. It's like she can sense memories through the Force. Like it's kind of similar to like when people say they go to old like war battles, like fields or like, you know, old native spots, and people say they feel this like energy
they
of
feel
like
the
death and stuff.
Happened, yeah.
It's that's similar to what Vernestra and them are sensing, and it's telling the story of what happened through their minds, which I love. I love how they use the Force in this show. I will argue with anybody, the Acolyte used the Force better than George Lucas ever did.
Yeah. Like, I think George Lucas laid the groundwork and what it could become. And now we're seeing finally what it could become. Does it suck that it's in a show that takes place way before the prequels and all that? And then the prequels come and they're doing the basics of the Force? Yes.
Which I want to bring up. Like, this is one of the things I'm a little iffy on. The whip lightsaber. How do you feel about the whip lightsaber?
I don't know. I think it's been in Legends before. I believe there was a Sith that used it, or a dark side user. I can't recall her name. I don't know. I don't really have an issue with it.
I just don't get how is that like? How is that? How do you do a lightsaber battle?
I don't know.
How is that practical?
Yeah, I don't know how it's practical or how it's really possible.
I mean, I guess it has some length, so that makes it practical. But when someone gets close to you, like, what the fuck are you supposed to do? Unless she can like retract it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Unless she can decide, like, all right, I'm gonna whip. I'm not gonna whip.
That would be interesting, though. These are the kind of retcons, though, that I don't like.
That we have to somewhere along the line get a fix of.
Yeah, it's just, I don't like this kind of stuff because it's like you're adding stuff to the past. So where the fuck is it in the future?
Yeah. Well, maybe she's
it doesn't make any
Jedi
sense in the context.
Yeah, but it could end up being that she's the only Jedi that used it, and then they learned, that was really fucking unpractical.
Wow, that sucked.
So anyone that came up and was weird. Like, I want to whip lightsaber, like, no. You have two choices. Either use a regular lightsaber or you're not a Jedi.
it's kind of partially, and like I get it because it's technology gets better. We got to sell more toys and things, but there's things that it's kind of like what happened with the prequels and the original trilogy, where like the technology was a million times more advanced in the past than like,
and then George started
20 years later
into them and re-releases of the movies. Yeah,
it's like we need to sell more toys. But I don't know. I it's weird. They kind of, I don't want to say cleverly, but they kind of covered that one up with just saying that, oh, the Emperor like banned half that technology and made everything more like streamlined in the original trilogy time. But this is one of those things that it's like, why have we never seen another Jedi use a whip?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but I guess we'll see more of it in season 2.
Yeah, we'll be able to tell them retcon of it.
Yeah. We'll tell then how it works. But if it's retractable, I think I can be more forgiving of it.
Yeah. But if she has to fight a battle with a whip, like, there's not a whole lot you can do.
I don't see how that's a practical battle for her. But anyways, Osha asks the stranger what he wants. He says the power of 2. Seems to be a pretty big theme in this show, the power of 2. She then asks where his nasty back scar came from. He said someone who threw me away. Continuing, and then literally the next scene we see Vanestra use the whip.
Yeah.
So kind of telling you right there who threw him away. Yeah. So at the same time, May awakens after being knocked out by Soul, restrained. And Soul says he's been waiting to have this talk with her for 16 years, and she's going to listen. Which this ties into episode 7, and it was a little symbolic in a sense too, because I liked how Osha awoke in an unknown place in the beginning, and then at the end of the episode, May's awaking
in an unknown
kind of like
place.
unknown.
I mean, she knows where she is, but she's restrained, so it's kind of unknown.
I just thought that was kind of funny how, like, you know, and it's also interesting symbolism for the finale of the show too, which we'll get into with episode 8. The episode here ends though with Osha, because the stranger told her to put on his helmet, be one with the Force. She puts it on and breathes, and it was a cool ending just because it's like an homage to Darth Vader.
Yeah, I didn't really have an issue with it. I know a lot of people had an issue with it being Darth Vader's breathing, but
really?
I think it was more so. Yeah, they did homage to Darth Vader's breathing, but I think it was more so that like she put the helmet on, and I think it started to pull her even farther to the dark side.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's kind of how episode 8 opens, is with that scene. But I don't get that. What's it matter? Kylo Ren breathed too.
Mm-hmm.
Every Sith with a mask probably breathes like Darth Vader.
Yeah.
I don't get what the problem is there. It's a fucking mask. But this will lead us into episode 7, Choice. Now, this is an episode where I think a lot of my more criticisms come into. But I loved the fact that it was basically episode 3, but from the Jedi's perspective.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
That was a very cool way to do the flashback.
Yeah, for sure.
And have it be the complete opposite. Because then we get answers to things that we didn't know yet.
Yeah, I love that. I loved how it was the exact same episode, just showing. I love different perspective episodes. I love when they do that kind of stuff in storytelling. So let's get into it. We're on Brendok 16 years earlier. This is obviously Soul telling May the story of what happened. 16 years earlier, Master Indara, Soul, Kelnaka, and Padawan Torben are studying the planet. Padawan Torben wants to go home to Coruscant. He's tired of being there, you know, an obnoxious young kid. And his master Indara tells him that they're researching the planet because 100 years ago, it was deemed lifeless after the great event of the High Republic books. And yet it thrives with life already. And if anybody knows anything about like nature, if for example, like if a nuke went off here, it would take a hell of a lot more than 100 years for life to start sprouting back. So if something
Like,
worse than a nuke goes off, destroys a planet. What'd you say?
I said you wouldn't see life for 1 billion years.
Right. You wouldn't see it at all. So I thought that was just a pretty neat little thing there, that life has already come back, and I like how it ties it back into the books. I also liked how Master Kalnaka was pissed that Torben didn't like his cooking. Those poor Wookiees. So Torben doesn't understand what's so important about studying this place. Like, okay, who cares? It's been 100 years, naive young kid. And this is when Soul reveals they're looking for what Mark was talking about earlier, a virgins. Now, can you explain what a virgins is?
So I think it's an anomaly in the Force, or on that planet, the thread.
Right.
Which then it could be anything. It could be a rock. It could be a plant that somehow is a Force. And kind of like how in Rebels there was Bendu. He's just a Force anomaly. Like, there's Force anomalies all throughout Star Wars, and they're looking for whatever it is. So I think they're going there expecting to find some kind of rock, some kind of living being that's not human.
Right. That's why they're kind of investigating plants and stuff.
Yeah, that's why they're walking around with whatchamacallit, basically what looks like metal detectors.
Like scanners.
Looking for something that sparks some kind of power in the Force.
Right. Because Indara kind of describes it as like a concentration of Force energy.
Yeah.
And then Soul says it's power enough to create life, because this life is already here on this planet that was wrecked. So clearly something is happening here that the Jedi want to get their hands on or know about. I love the idea. And like you said, it kind of ties into the greater Disney canon, where there are these like just Force beings or just planets that are stronger in the Force than others. The one thing though that I want to say that I thought was a little ridiculous here was that, like, they've been here 7 weeks and no one explained this shit to Torben.
Yeah, how does he not know what they're doing? Or maybe he just maybe he knows what they're doing, but just doesn't understand the significance of it, because he feels like, I'm a young Jedi, like on the come up, and this is just a waste of my time.
He's just listening, just like, all right, I guess I'm here studying fucking rocks. Like, I was in geology in high school. Why the fuck am I here? But I just find it hilarious that in 7 weeks, nobody explained to this dude that
why they're there.
We're looking for a virgin.
And why it's important.
You think the dude would have been like, why are we here?
Or maybe asked, like, as soon as they got on the ship, why are we going to this planet that was lifeless?
Like, you'd think a Jedi who's supposed to be training in combat and meditation and stuff would be asking, why am I looking at rocks?
Yeah.
But no, it took him 7 weeks, so he must be pretty...
I think he was committed and then became uncommitted.
Very committed. Anyways, so after exploring Brendok for so long, those 7 weeks, the Jedi believe there's no other form of life like them on the planet. They think there's obviously life on the planet, but just they're not exactly sure if any other humans or aliens of some kind are on the planet. They think they're the only ones with the nature, until Soul goes off on his own and finds the part from episode 3 that we saw May and Osha's children by that yellow tree in the distance, and then Mother Coral coming, bringing the girls back to the Coven, and we see that Soul followed and then climbed a whole mountain.
Yeah.
Like, damn, with no gear.
And
this guy's good.
That was my one issue I had.
Really?
One of them. Why is he climbing? He can jump.
But can he jump that high, though? I don't know if he could jump up a mountain.
I feel like if you have the Force, you can kind of double jump, like boom, boom.
Yeah, I guess he could be like a goat jumping up a mountain. But he climbed. Hey, maybe he needed to get a workout in.
Yeah, maybe 7 weeks of walking around wasn't enough.
So Soul then finds, like, we find out he was watching the witches training the children, talking about the thread, all that stuff, and then finds out that the ceremony's tonight. So he goes back to the other Jedi and Dara and them and tells them, hey, this is what's going on. We need to go confront these witches because they have children. So, and it's the Jedi's duty to protect children, or they think, at least. So this is the scene that we saw in episode 3 where they go there. Though what I liked about it this time was we got to see it from Torben's point of view. We got to actually see Mother Anastasia get in his head.
And seems like she got in his head like long before he got there.
Yeah, like, well, because he was just the weakest of mind, as we saw earlier.
It's like she already knew that they were there.
Was unfocused. Yeah, they knew, because in episode 3, I remember Coral and Anastasia talking about the Jedi being there.
Yeah.
And that was before that they were ever confronted. That was in the very beginning of the episode. So they knew.
But I think that's where we first learned that she got in his head, and maybe explains why he went into meditation.
Yeah. So this was kind of the beginning of what I would consider, in a sense, and I think Indara considered it to be Soul's manipulation of Osha.
Mm-hmm.
Where Soul, we see him give her the lightsaber, say, do you want to become a Jedi? All this stuff. And she's like, yeah. And then after Mother Anastasia promises that they'll let her indara go and train with the Jedi, or take the test at least to go into training, Indara and Soul kind of have this little confrontation where she says, do not confuse what Osha wants with what you want. Because I don't know if you saw this, but that's kind of what I think episode 7 and 8 was trying to tell, was Soul kind of, even though Osha wanted to leave, Soul kind of pushed her to come with him.
Yeah, he viewed it as like, yeah, she wants to go, but I want her to go. I want her to be my Padawan.
And this is kind of where I want to compare Soul to another Jedi that we've seen before, kind of like Qui-Gon. He kind of pushed for this Padawan to come with him, even though they were older than they should be, even though they were coming from a skeptical background and maybe had skeptical feelings and stuff. Soul and Qui-Gon are similar Jedi, where they seem to think, or they seem to have their own mind, and they don't just follow exactly what the council tells them.
Yeah, but I do think this shows, obviously we know Osha gets kicked out of the Jedi Council. I think this shows why there was so much pushback when they first brought Anakin. And it's not only because Obi-Wan went there with him and was like, hey, here's this boy that I bet on space pod racing to win, and stole him from his mother. But he's too old. Here, let's just train him. I think this was foreshadowing why they questioned it, because he was too old. He had already, there was no way for them to manipulate his mind.
Right. There was no way. And it's similar. It was a similar situation. I kind of like that. I it's why I like Soul as a character so much, because I love Qui-Gon. I wish Qui-Gon would have been in more movies, because he was just a fascinating character to see. This Jedi who's on the light side, but doesn't exactly agree with the cult-like following and rules of the Jedi.
Yeah,
he has his own mind. He's kind of like the closest thing to a gray Jedi that we're gonna see.
And he kind of, in my mind, like with the whole Anakin thing, it was almost like, okay, this kid is very powerful with the Force. Like, that's going to be useful. 2, he's in a situation where he's basically a slave. Like, I'm going to save him, which is, I think, also how Soul looks at it. Like, she's a slave to this cult. I'm going to save her. When in reality, you should have just left her there.
And clearly, even then, they kind of knew she was special. The girls were special, because even Anastasia says they didn't have a father.
Yeah.
And that was the same exact line that made Qui-Gon believe Anakin was special.
Yeah.
So I like the parallels there between the Phantom Menace and the Acolyte. So this is the part when May and Osha take the test. May takes it, explains what the Ascension is, and willingly fails for her coven because May doesn't want to leave. We know Osha wants to leave. So this is another scene where we didn't know this at the time. We thought Soul was just being nice to Osha in episode 3. But this is kind of where we see more like he was pissed that May failed the test when she should have passed. So he decided to take it upon himself to convince OSHA to not fail either. Like they're more like not just letting things play out is what I'm saying. Soul's kind of manipulating or like tugging the thread his way.
Yeah, he's
instead
tugging
of
his
just
way
letting the force
to make her go towards his path rather than stay there. Which
exactly.
I think if he had the opportunity, he would have done it with May too.
So I liked how Indara had this uneasy feeling about Soul and OSHA's relationship and how Soul was tugging at the force and the thread. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I didn't expect Indara to be like the voice of reason out of the team. I thought she'd maybe end up being maybe the one that's a little darker. Just based on
the one that's like, hey, we need to get these kids the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Because episode 3 makes you think, as we talked about it makes you think that the Jedi are trying to seize control. But we ended up being wrong about that.
Yeah.
That wasn't exactly what happened here.
It was just Soul.
So, yeah, it was mainly just Soul. So anyways, Indara informs the council of the girl's existence. And when she returns to camp, she tells Soul that the council said no to taking the Padawans, which we didn't think was the case.
No.
We thought that the Jedi were going around like imposing their will and forcing their rules on other people. That wasn't what happened. The council actually didn't want them to even get involved in this and said they had already gotten involved too much and went too far.
Yeah.
But Soul can't accept that answer, just like how Qui-Gon couldn't accept not training Anakin. Yeah. So anyways, suddenly, though, Torben gets the reading of the twins' midichlorian count, and he explains that the girls have an incredibly high count, but it's impossible to have the same symbiont without some form of manipulation. And this is what makes them realize, oh shit, these girls are the virgins.
Yeah, they're
part
what we're
of the
looking
virgins.
For.
Yeah, they're proof of something going on this world. So Torben, being the naive kid that just wants to get back home,
I'm going to
get out of these woods. Yeah, he's like, I'm getting them. And Soul's like, holy shit, let's stop them. But Soul ends up joining them anyways.
Yeah. I would like to point out the CGI of the scene of him on the bike was awful.
Yeah, it could have been better.
Yeah.
But I didn't really care that much of that.
No, I
but
didn't.
Yeah, it could have
I
been
noticed
better.
it.
Yeah, for sure. So Indara and Kalnaka got back to the ship. This, like I was saying in the first episode, it's an intriguing idea that OSHA and May are also children of the Force. And the funniest part is now that you've seen this, the explanation that we kind of talked about earlier, Soul says they were one person split into two.
Mm-hmm.
So that right there makes him different from Anakin.
Yeah.
And it's like, so all the people that were crying, the chosen one, this ruins the chosen one. No, it doesn't.
No.
Because this is a completely different fucking story from Anakin.
Yeah, they took, however they did it through the Force or the thread and split it from 1 to 2. It wasn't just one being made by the Force.
Right. Though I do wonder, because we didn't exactly find out what the Virgins was on the planet, and we didn't exactly find out how the witches did it. I think that's something they'll save for season 2. I wonder if OSHA and May's existence and how they were created through the Force will lead into the way Anakin was born later. Like, I wonder if it's what gives Plagueis and Sidious kind of the idea.
I think it definitely is. You know,
I think that's what this story's trying to tell.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that episode.
For sure.
But yeah, I agree. I think it's foreshadowing of them, realizing like this is possible. How can we do it?
Yeah, exactly. I that's just my theory, but I think Osha and May's existence is what will lead to Anakin and the manipulation through Sidious and all that. So back at the Witch's Coven, Mother Coral is pissed about Anastasia letting Osha go. And we end up seeing that she's the one that fueled the rage in May to do what she did. And she also was preparing the other witches for battle, while Mother Anastasia was being criticized by the other half of witches about the decision. So the witches overall were just not happy about this.
The Jedi and basically May created a quarrel amongst the whole coven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a whole panic. I was in a sense, I was partially right about Coral going behind Anastasia's back and like leading the revolt against the Jedi. But that is one criticism I have too, is I would have liked to have seen more interplay between them. Like, I would have liked to have seen more of like their clash of ideals, like Anastasia being like, we can't do this, and Mother Coral being like, well, we have to. You made it come this far. They kind of just talk about it for a second, and then Anastasia's like, okay, I guess we're doing this.
Yeah, I guess we're fighting now.
Yeah, I wish we would have seen more of that. She kind of just accepts the violence and moves on. And I didn't really like that. I wanted to see them have a confrontation instead.
Yeah, have them never really have a fight.
Like, I wanted to see maybe the witches fight each other. Yeah. Because I was thinking it could even go that route, but...
And have a witch revolution.
Yeah, unfortunately, something else happens, which we'll talk about here in a second. But anyways, so Torben and Sol arrive at the Coven. They can't get the elevator to work, so they climb. And Sol kind of is sensing Osha's in trouble. But May destroyed the door, so that's why they have to climb. And Sol also kind of warns Torben not to be manipulated again. And Dara flies the ship over the Coven, tells Kanaka to jump out and help stop the conflict. This is when May lights the fire in Osha's room, and we get to see the perspective of May that when she lit the fire, she immediately regretted it.
Yeah, she immediately regretted it, and she wanted to stop it, but she couldn't. She didn't know how.
And it was exactly like what we said, where kids do stupid shit and immediately regret. Like, I've done that before. I did something, I can't remember specifics, but I remember doing something I knew I shouldn't have, and then feeling bad that I did it like 5 seconds after.
Just out of anger or frustration, because you don't know how to.
I think everybody has that.
Yeah, as a kid, you don't know how to voice those opinions.
Right. So I thought it was cool, and then she's like obviously horrified by what happened. She tries to put the fire out. She can't. So it kind of leads to showing that May is actually more of the sympathetic sister than Osha was the whole time. And that's why I'm saying I really like what episode 3 did, because as far as we know from what we saw in episode 3, it framed May like she was just this evil little girl almost.
Yeah.
Whereas this showed, no, May actually has a heart. She was just upset and did something stupid. So Master Sol and Torben show up. They confront Mother Anastasia and Coral about the twins, how they were created. And this is one of the wildest scenes, because May comes running down screaming about a fire. Sol, being with his mind clouded and stuff, and obviously probably the same thing as what you said, he can't sense the difference between the girls. He thinks that's Osha. Mm-hmm. And he's so afraid of losing Osha, because Mother Anastasia goes to like teleport away. He's so afraid of losing her that he also just reacts and does something stupid, and he kills Mother Anastasia. Then realizes from seeing the mark on the girl's head that was May, not Osha. And that's even when Mother Anastasia tells him, I was going to let you take Osha, basically telling him like, you fucked up.
You fucked up. I was going to let you do what you needed to do, and probably even tell you how we made them, and then let you be on your merry way.
And it all stemmed from fear. And again, how is this bad writing? Fear is the greatest deterrent of the Jedi. That's been the whole fucking plot line of the entire story. Like, this ties back to Yoda's teachings of Luke in episode 5, where he teaches him, not to be afraid.
Yeah, don't
same
react
thing
on your fear.
Right. And same thing with Yoda with Anakin when he says, I sense great fear in you. This is showing fear. Like, it all ties together.
Yeah.
How is this bad writing?
Because they view it, they probably looked at that scene, saw her turn into the black thing to teleport, and was just like, oh, they fucked it up. They fucked it up. It's ruined.
Like, people were like, this is so inconsistent with Star Wars. How? This is actually tying in more to the prequels, sequels,
this
and
is giving you reason,
original trilogy.
Yeah, this is giving you reason as to why fear is such an important factor to Jedi.
I don't know. I guess people just don't. People are just so clouded in their own way of just wanting to hate something. They don't see the cleverness in front of them. Anywho, so after Mother Anastasia dies, obviously Coral's pissed, tells May to run, and the witches start attacking. Sol refuses to fight Coral. The witches are shooting at Torben. He's blocking them. And everyone was afraid that Torben's mind was going to get taken over. But no, instead, our Wookiee friend, Kalnaka, is the one that gets his mind taken over. What did you think about that scene?
So when that all happened, my mind went to he just got taken over by Coral. But then I didn't see still haven't seen anyone talk about it from that point of view. But that's exactly what happened, because he went there to stop and help them, and he immediately flipped on both of them.
Right.
So I'm glad you caught that and noticed that, because I was going to bring it up, because I didn't see anyone else talk about that aspect, that it wasn't him attacking them. No.
Yeah, he was under the control of the witches.
Yeah, which
he was the one that ended up being taken over instead of Torben. It was like a plot twist.
Yeah, which is amazing.
It was, unfortunately, the Wookiee action we got to see was like him being mind controlled, which wasn't exactly what I wanted to see. But
I would imagine that's how a Wookiee would be.
Well, and it also makes sense that the witches got in his head. That's why he was so messed up later, and why he was writing those symbols in his house and stuff.
I don't know if he was trying to figure out how, or if he enjoyed that feeling and was trying to figure out how to like become a witch to do that.
Well, and I was reading something. I don't know much about this, but I know that the Wookiees have like a code of honor.
Yes, so I was going to bring that up.
And he was upset because of what he had done, even though he was under the witch's control. He basically exiled himself because of that.
So what it is, it's a very simple name. It's called Mad Claw, which if you use your claws, your retractable claws that a Wookiee has, to fight someone and cause them harm, you're shunned from the Wookiee, not temple, but from your tribe and, the whole entire group of Wookiees. So you're banished. So obviously him being a Jedi, he doesn't have Wookiees to go back to. So he banished himself and went into hiding because of using that.
Right. That was really, like, again, it's one of those things that maybe they could have explained it, but, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, but it's one of those things
I like when they just throw something in there for like a hardcore fan to see.
Yeah.
It's not like super important to the story.
No, and that's something that is in, I don't know if it's in canon or if it's in Legends, but it's one of those things that, like, if you know about it, you understand. Now, seeing that he did that, you understand why he was hiding. And if you don't, it's one of those things you can look it up and be like, oh, he basically shunned himself and went into hiding.
It's just one of those extra little Easter eggs.
Yeah.
For Star Wars fans to find and be like, oh, cool. So I like that too. But Kalnaka almost kills Sol and Torben until Indara shows up. And she frees the Wookiee's mind, but in turn, by doing that, she breaks the mental connection that the witches are having with Kalnaka, and it ends up killing them.
Yeah.
That was kind of weird. I didn't really like that scene because I kind of just... how was Indara so powerful in the Force that she was able to break all of the witches' connection with Kalnaka.
I don't know what she did to do that. However, it killed all of the witches, but we still never saw Mother Coral's body.
No, we did never see Mother Coral
transferred
die.
into him. So where did she go?
We don't know. But I just, that was one thing I wasn't exactly cool with, because I just feel like, in a sense, it was kind of like a cop-out for them to not have the Jedi slaughter the witches. But like they did, but they didn't do it with like their lightsabers and stuff.
Yeah, they did it basically like that whole fight was. It was just unintentional.
Yeah, it was unintentional. But it's like, for a show that already wasn't holding back, I mean, the Stranger versus the Jedis was some of the, you know, most gruesome and violent stuff we've ever seen in the Star Wars series. And it's kind of weird Disney. That they didn't just pull the trigger on the Jedi killing the witches because they had to, because the witches were attacking them.
Yeah.
It just seemed weird. I didn't really like that, because I don't get how Endara was powerful enough to stop like 30 witches. And then, yeah, but I did enjoy the fact that Mother Coral disappeared.
Yeah. So now,
and she might be in season 2 or something later.
Yeah. So now she's out there somewhere.
But it's just weird, because it's for a series that I felt wasn't pulling its punches. It kind of pulled it here. I would have rather just seen the Jedi take them out. It would have made the scene of Sol running through and May and them running through the coven and all the witches laying there dead make more sense, or feel more like traumatic than what ended up really happening.
Yeah, if it was, they went and slaughtered them. Which
yeah,
I guess
because they had to.
They slaughtered him through his mind.
Yeah, it was weird. It's like, I get breaking the mental connection, but I don't see how that, I don't know. They all just fall over and that's the end of them.
Yeah.
That was weird. I really didn't like that scene personally, but moving on. Sol, this is where Sol saves Osha. But another thing that we see in this that we didn't see in episode 3 was Sol dropped May.
Yeah, he chose Osha over May.
Again, manipulating things. Instead of trying to save them both, he just said, well, fuck May.
Yep.
Guess she's got to die so I can have my Osha.
Fucking creep.
Yeah, what was this like? What was this connection to Osha that Sol had? It was kind of creepy.
And it's like, you learned essentially that they were the virgins. Wouldn't you want to try to get both of them? Be like, bring them back to the council and be like, yo, this is what went down, but we have the virgins, so do with that what you may.
I mean, I get the fact, though, he wasn't strong enough to hold them both up, so he had to make a choice, but I don't know. He definitely was in the wrong for he literally just decided, okay, fuck me. I'm not even gonna attempt to continue to save her. She's done. Let me get my Osha. So anyway, they return to the ship after all this travesty, which is dead. Everybody dead except for Coral. And Master Endara informs the Jedi that they'll be returning to Coruscant, argues with Sol about the consequences of his actions. This is when Padawan Torben worryingly asks, what are they going to tell the council when they get back? And Endara says, we'll tell the council the truth. May burned down the witch's fortress and everyone was lost. So this
was the beginning of corruption.
I don't even want to say it's the beginning, but it's just showing how the Jedi are not these true beings of truth and justice that everybody thinks they are.
Yeah.
At this point in time, they're starting to go against the code, go against what their superiors are saying, cover things up. This was one of a few things that we saw in this show. But Endara is basically going to lie. And she convinces Sol that he should lie, because why would he abandon Osha after everything he just did to her?
Yeah.
That would be very selfish of him to do. And that's what leads to him saying that he promises she'll never feel this pain again.
Liar.
My only thing I wanted to ask you about this, was this a traumatic enough event because it was all a mistake at the end of the day. Nobody necessarily did anything awful except for Soul. Was this a traumatic enough event for Torben not to speak for 10 years?
Yes.
And give me your explanation
so,
for that.
As we learned, he's there for 7 weeks. Wants to know, finally asks, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Gets his way out. He's like, all right, I can just go. I'm going to, against the Jedi Council's will, I'm going to go take these 2 girls, bring them back. I'm the hero. We have the virgins. Then gets attacked by Kilnaka. Gets Osha, so he gets 1 out of the 2. And then goes back to the ship and then is told, we're going to lie about what happened. Like, I feel like he went into meditation because he's like, 1, I got attacked by someone I considered a peer, even though it wasn't really him. And then we don't get that fulfillment of finding the virgins. And then now I have to lie to the council about what happened. So I think it was one of those things where like he couldn't bring himself to lie. So he's like, all right, I'm going into exile and I'm just going to hibernate. I know what happened. They aren't going to tell him what happened. I can't be responsible for that.
I 100% agree with you there, for sure. Was it enough for him to kill himself? Maybe he's being a little dramatic now.
Maybe, but also I think it goes back to him having her in his head and telling him like, oh, you want to go home? Like, you can go home. You can go home. I think that was like a symbolic reference to like, all right, he can go home now. Like, he got his answers. May's alive. Osha's both alive. I have my answers. The Jedi Council doesn't, but I have my answers. I can go to peace, basically.
Yeah, I really like that. You may have just convinced me a little differently there, saying that with the drinking. I agreed with everything else. Mm-hmm. I thought, yeah, it makes sense. He's not going to talk because he doesn't want to lie. And he's the one who started it. If he wouldn't have went to the coven, maybe that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, had he not been, so gung-ho and was like, all right, I'm just going to go steal him. Fuck you guys.
But I kind of like that. I mean, unintentional or not, it's interesting to think about how that could be the symbolic nature behind it.
Yeah, like that was his piece. Like, he can go home now.
That's a nice take. I like that. I didn't even think about that.
But killing yourself doesn't bring you home, so I don't condone killing yourself. But
well, in Star Wars, it does.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're righteous enough, you become a Force ghost. If you're not, then I guess I don't know what happens to you then, but you become one with the Force.
And maybe he meditated long enough to get that ability.
Well, that's all it takes, right? Just some really, really intense, long meditation and understanding of the Force. So maybe, I mean, he was so strong, she couldn't even touch him.
Yeah, she couldn't do anything.
He was pretty fucking strong. One last thing I want to say about this episode was I thought the song at the end, The Power of Two, was a banger.
Yes, I agree.
I added it to my Spotify playlist because I thought I was like, I love when shows get songs made for them or movies or something. I don't know why that just tickles me, but I love when it's just a song about the show.
Yeah.
But now this leads us into episode 8, The Acolyte, our grand finale. The stranger finds Osha with the helmet on, breathing in the homage to Darth Vader. But suddenly, he starts freaking out because he's sensing something crazy going on in her head and is pulled into her head. And I don't know if he saw the vision, but she saw a vision of who she perceived to be May killing Soul.
Yeah.
And that intrigued the stranger because killing Soul without using a weapon
is what he wants.
Which is what the stranger wanted. So the stranger's like, shit, we need to go. Where's this happening at?
But with that scene, I literally put a line in my notes and told myself to write down the name of it, but I didn't. The realm that Ahsoka meets Anakin in. Well, I can't think of what it's called. But is that where they went? Like
the one from Rebels with Ezra too?
Yeah, that one too.
The world between worlds?
Yes, the world between worlds. So in my mind, I was like, okay, did they just go to the world between worlds, saw the door where that was the outcome, and that's when she realized, like, I need to go stop that outcome, and then finds out.
They may have.
Yeah.
I think part of her knew though that it was her that was gonna do it.
Yeah.
Then she just kind of said it was May, but she didn't fully know. But
Yeah.
I think part of her did it kind of, she seemed shaken up by it. But this is where she says, you don't know where it is. You need me. So we're going to go together. And the stranger's like, all right, we'll see who can get to May first.
Yeah.
Now, back on the ship, May is arguing with Soul about his actions on Brendock until she breaks free, tases him with Pip, and then uses like a smaller evacuation ship to undock and get away from him. Soul chases May through an asteroid field, which was a crazy scene to see this giant ship just hurling through asteroids. And he's about to shoot May down. Now, what did you think? Did you think he was going to kill her? Because Basil stopped it.
I think he was at that point with everything going on that he was like, all right, I can't let her, escape from me and then go and tell everyone exactly what happened. So if I kill her, no one knows that story is still with me. No one else knows.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there was like the potential that maybe he was going to kill her when she got in his sights. And that's why Basil was like, wait, no, fuck this guy.
But yeah, but also then it's one of those things, why would Basil want to stop him?
I think because he heard the story.
Oh, yeah.
And knew he was
Basil
in the wrong.
The story, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
So when he saw maybe, well, he is force sensitive too. Isn't he a Jedi?
I don't think so.
I think he is.
Is he?
I think they said that in episode 3 because he was with the team of Jedi that went to Kofar.
I just thought he was a excellent tracker that they used. I didn't know if he was force sensitive or not.
No, I think he's a force sensitive, and he probably could sense Soul's intentions.
Yeah, like he might not be force sensitive to the point where like he's a full blown Jedi, but like he can feel the threat of the force, and was like,
yeah,
"Hey,
I believe he is a Jedi because he was with them on like going there." So I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to go back to episode 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And see what Yord was saying about him, but I think he was.
But yeah, even if he's not, like the aspect that like he heard the story and was like, "Yo, Soul, you fucked up. You can't just kill her."
Yeah, no, I saw a lot of people saying like this was just plot convenience, which maybe in some sense it is, just for them to get to Brendock. But I thought it was kind of cool to see that.
Yeah.
So back on Coruscant, this is where Senator Raincourt gets involved. He visits Master Venestra and confronts her about investigating the murder of the Jedi without informing the Senate. And I really liked his quote, and I wanted to share it because I like sharing quotes, if you guys couldn't tell. In this quote, Raincourt tells Venestra, "I think the Jedi are a massive system of unchecked power, posing as a religion, a delusional cult that claims to control the uncontrollable." He then continues, "Not the Force, your emotions. You project an image of goodness and restraint, but it's only a matter of time before one of you snaps. And when, not if, that happens, who will be strong enough to stop him? Clearly nobody."
No.
Because this is an obvious foreshadow to Anakin.
Yeah. But I would just like to say, that guy, he better be untouchable throughout the rest of if there's season 2, season 3, he better be untouchable because he said what everybody was thinking.
Oh, he's going to die. Someone's going to kill him.
I don't care. He's going to die, yes.
He's going to die. Vernestra's probably going to kill him. Because he's getting too involved in the Senate going against the Jedi.
Yeah, and I think that's how they get their scapegoat of like, all right, now we're not getting investigated. Yeah. This guy that wants to do it is gone. But yeah, I need him in a 3.75-inch figure, Hasbro. I need it.
Oh, you're going to get it. I'm sure they'll make toys of the Acolyte.
I don't know. They're fucking
really?
Up. They're fucking up with the 3.75-inch scale right now.
You don't think? I thought anytime they made something Star Wars, it's just a money license to print toys.
Real quick, right now with the 3.7-inch line of Star Wars, we're still getting stuff from The Mandalorian, as opposed to
Holy shit.
the 6-inch scale who got Baylan Skoll. They've gotten a bunch of people from the Ahsoka show. We've barely gotten anybody. Like, they're so behind with it.
Wow.
But
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because you'd think Star Wars... I mean, I would think Star Wars toys still sell.
They do. But for some reason, they think no one wants figures in that scale, even though they continuously sell out as opposed to the 6-inch scale. So whoever's in charge at Hasbro is fucking up right now.
Yeah, I'm not much of a toy enthusiast or collector, so I'm not really sure, but I still have all my old Star Wars toys.
I have all of my old ones and
special
new ones.
Yeah, I don't have any new ones, so I'm very uninformed in that side of things. But yeah, I just assume, because I remember as a kid, I mean, there was never a time there weren't Star Wars toys on the shelf.
Yeah,
and new ones.
There was a figure for everybody.
Even when Star Wars was gone all those years between the prequels and the sequels, we were still getting toys left and right.
Yep. Now they're
that surprises me that we're not getting a lot of Acolyte or even Ahsoka toys yet.
Yeah, they're slacking.
Wow. Come on, Hasbro. You're fucking up. So, back to the story. Osha refuses to tell the stranger where they're going. And this is one of the most crucial scenes of episode 8, because this is shows where they blast off. And we finally get the big reveal that I've been waiting this whole season for. Darth Plagueis is watching in the shadows. Now, Mark, I wanted to ask you this, because I was wondering, how does Darth Plagueis tie in to the Acolyte? Is he the stranger's master, or is he just watching Osha and the events of the twins play out in the shadows?
So, it could go one of two ways. He is Kumir's master, or actually it could go three ways. Or he's just out and about. He doesn't have his own master yet. He's just very intrigued with the dark side of the Force, learned of this planet, and decided, I'm going to spy on them, saw that they were there, and was just kind of overhearing what they were saying and putting two and two together and being like, okay, she was made somehow, some way through the Force. What I would like to see is they go the route where Darth Tenebris, who had multiple different apprentices, is Plagueis' master at the time, and also Kumir's. And it's kind of him doing a test, like, hey, you want to be my main apprentice? You need to go and take out this guy, the stranger. You need to go find him and take him out. If you can kill him, you can be my apprentice. If he kills you, all right, fuck it, I'm stuck with him. Because in Legends, it ends up being that Plagueis obviously wins and ends up being his apprentice, and then, same story Palpatine told. Plagueis killed Darth Tenebris, became the Sith Master, and then found Palpatine. I think it's
power of two.
Yeah, which Tenebris doesn't really follow from what I've read. But I think it's going to be one of more so on the aspect that, like, he's either Tenebris doesn't exist and he's Kumir's master, and he's watching him and like, okay, now my apprentice has his own apprentice, so now I need to kill both of them.
Could be. I'm very curious to see how this plays into season 2.
There's lots.
I want to know: is the stranger, like, is he just like a rogue Jedi, or was he actually trained by Plagueis?
Yeah,
that's my biggest question heading into the next.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways they can go with it, because as you've seen with the show, they brought things from Legends that didn't exist. So you could bring that whole aspect of that story, where there is that overseeing master that no one knows about, being Tenebris, sent Plagueis to go and kill him. And then we get Tenebris and Plagueis, and then shortly afterwards he kills his master. Or it could be that Tenebris doesn't exist, he's Kumir's master, and it is what it is, and now he's got to kill him because he has his own apprentice.
And like I said, could this be him watching what's going on with Osha and May, and maybe learning of the idea of creating a Force child?
Yeah, and it could be that, and him being like, okay, well, right now I don't need to kill him. I can kind of just watch him and learn how this being became. And I have this planet now that has kurtosis. So if, he ends up dying, like, this planet's mine now. No one else knows about it. So yeah, it's very interesting. They have lots of different routes they can go with Plagueis being introduced.
Yeah, I that's like I said, that's the most intriguing part to me heading into season 2. But continuing on, Mog informs Vernestra that Sol has been found on Brendok, so she decides to go with a team of Jedi Knights to confront him. Osha and the Stranger arrive on Brendok, while Sol is searching through the ruins of the Witch's Coven and is reminded of his failures while searching for May. While that's happening, Osha is hot wiring the door. The Stranger disappears like Batman, as usual. But I love this. This is, again, why I say this is good writing, this show. Osha is a mech neck. She is a tech-like character.
Mm-hmm.
So she, of course, can hotwire the door. It's little things like that that separate writing in a story.
Yeah, there's the consistent callback to previous knowledge.
Yeah, like, she's an engineer.
It's not just a random person hotwiring a door. She's like, oh, I can't get through the door. I don't know how to go over. I'm going to do what I know. Beep, boop, 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 boop. Shh, we're in.
Yeah, she didn't have to climb the mountain. She was smart enough to figure out how to fix the door.
Yeah.
And the elevator. So I love that. This is, again, why when people say this show's bad writing, I just laugh. Because you don't see that. That's detailed writing. You don't see that often in a lot of shows.
Yeah.
So, especially fantasy shows. But continuing, the Stranger disappears. He confronts Master Soul. And they have an epic battle.
Fucking amazing.
One of the absolute greatest battles in all of Star Wars. The fight choreography was incredible. I loved them fighting in the hallway. I loved when Soul uses his force kicks.
Mm-hmm.
I loved when he stopped the lightsabers and pushed all of them away with using the force, like the lightsabers and the Stranger. Again, this show is using the force better than anything we've ever seen before.
And then, but the downside of that is you have people that say oh, they're ruining the force. No, they're using the force in a way that it's supposed to be used. We just never got
this
to
is
see
how
it.
It should have always been used. And just either we didn't have the technology to show it, or George Lucas just didn't have the vision for it exactly.
Yeah, he had his vision for the groundwork. He didn't have his vision for the long-term abilities of it.
This is what I always wanted to see out of Star Wars, is Jedi using the Force to fight. And this show does it better than anything.
Yeah.
And we even see it again when Osha confronts May in their burned down bedroom. May tries to convince him that Soul's been lying to her. He killed their mother. Osha doesn't want to believe it, and they start throwing hands, and they're doing all these force kicks and jumps and backflips, and that shit's awesome.
Yeah. And
it's adding layers to the combat that we don't normally see.
It's awesome. The only time it wasn't awesome that they had a Jedi doing backflips and front flips and all that stuff is when they had Yoda doing it.
Yeah, exactly. That, because Yoda is so powerful, he shouldn't have had to have even moved an inch.
No.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad that you agree with me, because that was definitely something I was going to bring up whenever we do our Attack of the Clones podcast.
Yeah.
Was how Yoda should have been more like Torben. More like you can't even touch him because he's so powerful.
Yeah. Even though
Not
Dooku was just
jumping around
as powerful in the dark side, but Yoda's Yoda. He shouldn't have had to do that.
But George, and it could be argued a little bit, though it does kind of make sense. George Lucas was more about selling toys and pleasing children with the prequels. So
yeah.
He just thought it'd be fun. I remember watching that scene and everybody in the theater was just laughing their ass off.
Oh yeah,
I was a kid, so I
so
thought it was
unexpected.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But as I grew up and understood storytelling more, I was like, oh, that doesn't even make any fucking sense.
Because even in Clone Wars, he really didn't do anything like that.
Not really. He still did fight a little crazy, but not as many flips as he did when he fought Dooku.
Coked out scene. On ketamine and going crazy.
So yeah, I liked how they used the Force in this show. I liked how Soul was calm in the fight too. Like Soul had control most of the time.
Yeah.
And he was able to keep his composure, like use the force, but still fight with the lightsaber. I don't know. It's just, I think it's one of the best fights and we've ever seen. So it was awesome. And Soul and the Stranger continue to fight. They continue their battle. Then they see Vernestra's ship arrive in the distance. And Soul, I think Soul kind of knows they're coming for him. So even though he says, you know, they're coming for you, and then the Stranger's like, I don't think they're here for me, buddy.
They know I'm here yet.
Yeah, right. So while May and Osha are fighting, May disappears. So she knows that same Batman style disappearing that the Stranger does. I want to learn more about that.
I didn't even catch that, actually.
Yeah, she disappears right in their like middle of their fight.
Oh, yeah, but the camera cut away because they were both looking up at the ship.
Right, but she just she's gone. Like, yeah, Osha didn't hear her run off.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. I just kind of figured Osha was focused on that and she kind of just walked away. But no, that's a good point.
No,
I didn't even think about
she
that.
Straight disappeared.
Yeah.
So Osha is standing there like, oh shit, I need to get out of here. May disappeared. Soul destroys the Stranger's lightsaber, which was sick.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a samurai style move. I love when we see some samurai stuff in Star Wars. And then Soul has the upper hand. He's holding the lightsaber up to the Stranger's throat until May, who disappeared, comes out of nowhere again and attacks him from behind, steals his lightsaber, throws it away. And I want to make a nice clarification here for the people who missed it because they were probably looking at their fucking phones instead of paying attention to the show. The lightsaber, the glass broke.
Yep.
It broke. Get it through your heads, people. And I'll explain why that pisses me off in a second. The Stranger here, though, he tries to manipulate May to kill Soul and finish her training with him. But May refuses. She ends up taking more of the noble route, saying, no, I want him to face the council, face the Senate, and pay for his crimes.
Yeah, I like how
I want him to feel horrible.
Yeah, I like how Kumir at this point is just like, all right, whoever's going to finish what I want done, I'm going to take. I don't care.
Dude's just playing the field. He's like, am I getting you or you? Which one?
Yeah, I don't. Either one of you is fine. I don't care. Just someone do it.
It's like, somebody fucking kill a Jedi without a weapon here, please. So this is when Soul, reveals to May his theory of how their mother split her and Ocean, one consciousness into two with the Virgins. And he admits to killing their mother out of fear. And that's when Osha's in the background. She overhears it while she's picking up the broken lightsaber in the background. Soul turns around and is like, oh shit. Tries explaining to Osha that he lied to her all these years to protect her. She already is struggling with anger. She's already struggling with the dark side. This sets her over the edge. And she starts force choking him. That scene was sick.
Yeah. So the way they played the cameras in that, I didn't fully grasp what was happening. Like, in my mind, like, because he was starting to say basically, like, I love you. Mm-hmm. So I thought, like, because he's a Jedi and they can't love, he was struggling to say that word. At first,
you didn't realize he's getting choked.
At first, I was like, oh, you can't say love. Oh, you're a Jedi. I guess that makes sense. And then I was like, oh, no, you're being murdered. Awesome.
Well, and again, this actually, I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, that was Soul's downfall. He fell in love with the idea of Osha being his Padawan. Love always ends up fucking things up in the end.
Which then, amazing writing, because it portrays into Jedi's disagreements and things they can't have. And that was his downfall. One, he attacked out of fear.
Love was his downfall.
And then now he's dying because of
fear
love.
And love. Yep. 100% correct. Yeah, I love that. And again, all that plays into Anakin.
Yep.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
So it's like, how is this bad writing? How is this not tying into Star Wars? This is tying more into it than The Mandalorian does.
Yeah, because The Mandalorian basically was just retconning the sequels, prequels, whatever.
Basically, it just retconned what happened to the Empire.
Yeah.
And kind of just is telling its own story with some of the characters like Luke and stuff, but it's its own thing. Whereas this is really like tying into the prequels.
Yeah. In the overseen arc
it.
of Anakin, basically his downfall being everything that is considered a sin to Jedi he was doing. And now we're seeing Soul is dying for the same reason. Because he couldn't control it.
We're seeing the same thing was happening 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So Osha, consumed by her immense anger, she actually kills Soul. And by choking him to death, he tells her, he lets out like, it's okay. Which was incredible acting by Lee Jung-jae, my poor man who died. And really sad I'm not going to see him in season 2 because he was one of my favorite characters. But storytelling wise, this was awesome. And this is the part that everybody's bitching about and what I was talking about earlier. Everybody and their mother, maybe not their mother, but everybody is bitching about the crystal bleeding red. And okay, if you didn't understand this concept, I get it. If you haven't seen it before, I get it. Okay, it was a little jarring. It was strange to you, I guess. But this, how could you not say this isn't fucking awesome?
Another thing I'd like to add why people were so mad about it, because during the fight scene with Obi-Wan and Anakin, his lightsaber never changed. Well, one, the crystal was never exposed. Two, in that scene, he's fighting out of love and fear. Then it turns to anger when he's left there to burn by Obi-Wan. That's when it turned to anger. So if he had a lightsaber that was exposed, it would have turned red in that scenario.
Thank you for clearing that for us.
Like, her lightsaber was exposed. And then she reacted.
Some people were looking at Twitter bitching instead of paying attention to the show when it was going on.
And then in that instance, she's killing Soul out of anger, then turns the lightsaber to the stranger out of anger, thus bleeding it red.
Yeah.
It was completely normal. And like,
now,
I get sorry. I get it in Legends.
No,
like, there's a whole ceremony that happens with bleeding your lightsaber, but it's the same concept. It's anger and the dark side consuming you, which happened, and she just happened to be holding the crystal.
You know what I have to say to that? This was cooler. Fuck Legends.
I agree. Like, you're getting bleeding in Star Wars, not bleeding like blood, but you're getting lightsaber bleeding in Star Wars in a much cooler way than Legends did it. Like, she's flat out just completely consumed by anger and does it.
Yeah. And like you said, the casing was cracked.
Yeah.
And that was a good point about Anakin. He wasn't fighting out of anger until after he got burned, really.
Yeah.
His emotions were very clouded because he was just doing what Sidious told him to do.
Yeah. Which in his mind was right. And then he realized, I think in that instant, like, maybe it's not, which then led to fear. And then, love for trying to make sure Padme stayed alive, even though he killed her. But that's a different point. He's just dumb.
But he didn't feel true anger until
he was left
burned.
stranded. Yeah.
Like, Obi-Wan left him for dead. And that was truly when he felt just pure hatred and anger. But and his casing wasn't cracked. So he couldn't bleed the Kyber crystal. And this didn't even affect me at all. Because not only do I think it's cooler than the Legends explanation, but I played Jedi Survivor. This has happened already in something that people liked. Nobody bitched about it in Jedi Survivor. I don't remember any of you on X complaining about Jedi Survivor. So don't complain about it here. It was cool. It's cooler than Legends. If you don't like it, too fucking bad.
Yeah, go read a Legends book.
Yeah, go read Legends then. Anyways, Star Wars always gets me pissed off.
Because people are so dumb.
I try not to swear so much in these podcasts, but Star Wars just grinds my gears. So anywho, Master Vanestra and her team get off the ship. She immediately senses the stranger's presence, continuing to hint that he was her Padawan. Osha follows May. They escape the coven through a tunnel, which that was how May survived when Soul dropped her.
We learn how she was able to survive the fall.
Vernestra arrives with the Jedi in the ruins, like earlier, sensing the tragedies and the memories that haunt this place. And she finds Master Soul's corpse. And something that I thought was cool was how she was investigating the corpse. And this ties into what she was saying about a tip of the scales. Vernestra is the one who finds Soul dead without any wound marks, which ties into the stranger wanting to kill the hopes and dreams of the Jedi by revealing that there are Force users that are evil and not just Jedi out there. So I like that scene. It ties into the tipping the scales that she said a couple times, and I think that was a quote that I brought up in the first episode of this. The Jedi Knights then use Basil and his nose to track down the twins. Somehow they had a backpack of Osha's or something, or May's, I can't remember, but they used that to track them down. The twins find the tree they used to sit under as children and finally make amends after 16 years apart, which was a pretty emotional scene. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's needed.
Mm-hmm. The stranger then arrives and warns Osha that the Jedi are going to kill her if they discover that she has the power to kill a Jedi. So she better come with him. Osha, though, she decides, okay, I'll train under you, become your student, but you have to allow May to go free. Here's something I want to ask you about, though, the mind wipe. That was something that was definitely controversial, and I can understand why in a sense, because I didn't, maybe you can explain it to me, I didn't fully understand why she had to get her mind wiped. And like let the Jedi take her. Why couldn't they have just taken her to another planet and mind wiped her there so the Jedi would never get their hands on her?
So one, I don't fully understand how they were able to wipe her mind. I don't have an answer for that. I think the reason why they wanted to leave her there, though, is because if they leaving her there, they have someone they can ask, which buys them time. Because then they'll take her back to the council, they'll ask her questions and realize she doesn't know anything. Her mind was wiped. She has no recollection of her sister, recollection of what happened there that day. So it buys them time to get away. So I think that was why. It was basically like they sacrificed her to get away.
But my argument to this is if her mind was wiped, wouldn't you think there's maybe a power to bring her memories back to her?
Yes, I think that's going to end up being what happens.
And plus, May just fought 16 years to avenge her sister. Now they've reunited. She's just kind of okay with forgetting her already.
Yeah, that whole part of that sequence, I don't really fully understand the mindset of the character, per se.
This is a part where if you want to say this is like bad writing
or
strange writing, I can understand that. Because this felt more just like plot convenience than anything. Because like I said, I didn't fully understand. Like even if what you're saying is true, but wouldn't it buy them more time if the Jedi just never got their hands on May in the first place?
Yeah, but then with that, it's the rule of two. So what are they going to do with her?
Well, they could still wipe her mind, but just somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know.
They could have just hit her on another like outer realm or rim planet.
Yeah.
And just wiped their mind there.
I think it's just a plot decoy, per se.
Something they didn't think far enough.
Yeah, they just kind of were like, all right, she's going to wipe her mind, doesn't know her sister, boom, done. But then it's like, okay.
It's an interesting concept, though, because like I like how Osha and May end up on the opposite side of the spectrum from where they both started.
Yeah, that's completely flipped.
I do like that. But I just found it kind of straight. Like, why would you just leave her there? Like, I get wiping her mind, because if she's not going to be your apprentice anymore, the rule of two, like you said. But she's like, why didn't you just hide her on Tatooine? Nobody finds anybody on Tatooine.
Yeah, exactly. Just drop her off somewhere.
Just drop her off. Let her go. Let her go live with Luke. No one will ever find him. But yeah, that was weird. I thought that was kind of strange, but it was still, I still like the concept of the fact that now May is in Osha's place, not knowing what really happened, and Osha is now the Acolyte.
Yeah. So I guess in that
was
part,
cool.
It's good storytelling because it's a complete twist of the story.
It is good storytelling. It's just they should have thought maybe deeper into the why she's going to stay there and let the Jedi take her willingly and just give up knowing her sister after the whole season fighting for her sister. So that could have been a lot better. I get it. And the other thing I want to say is, like, now what is really the plot here with May? Like, in my opinion, personally, I would have rather May died here, because what more does she really have to do? Recover her memories, reunite with her sister again? Like, we're just going to be retreading water at this point. I think it could have been more interesting if May died from Vernestra, and that could have fueled Osha's rage even further against the Jedi going into season 2.
I mean, we could still get that.
We could.
Like, she could go and try and do something to reverse her mind wipe and then cause her to die, and then Osha finds out.
That could happen, but I just assume they're gonna reunite again, because they kind of already teased it, like, I'll find you. But it's just like, we just found each other.
Yeah.
Why we got to find each other? I don't know. I think it would have been better if May died, because I just don't see what May's story is.
Yeah, because then that part of the story ends there, and you're able
May
to
just seems irrelevant now.
Yeah.
Like, obviously Vernestra already teases, like, when they meet together, that she's going to use her somehow to find the stranger, because they have some sort of connection still, even if her mind has been wiped.
Yeah.
But I just think it would have been more interesting if she died.
Yeah. It would have made more sense.
It could have fueled Osha's hate for the Jedi even more than what she already had. But, twins recite their saying, which was cool. I did like that.
Yeah.
Where she forgot to say the ending. That was emotional. And then the stranger and Osha escape. The Jedi find May memory wiped, bring her back to Coruscant. Vernestra interrogates her. And this was another really cool scene that I loved, was how Vernestra lied, just like how Indara lied.
Yep.
Vernestra lied because she doesn't want to get caught over being the reason. Like, she created the monster that did this, really, with the stranger. She doesn't want the Senate or the Council to know what happened, because obviously she did something fucked up.
Yeah.
So she frames Soul as the one who caused all this death, and then killed himself on Brendok,
thus adding to the lies and corruption of the Jedi.
Which is awesome. And that's another thing I want to talk about, is people are complaining that, why do the Jedi always have to be evil? And I get that. We do want to see the Jedi maybe be heroes, but this is 100 years before the Phantom Menace. The time frame lines up for Jedi to be liars and deceitful and hiding things. Because when a institution gets corrupted, it takes place over several years. It doesn't just happen at once.
Yeah.
So with the time frame of this show, I don't know what anybody was expecting other than seeing the Jedi be fucked up.
Yeah, no, it tells the story that leads to what we see with the Jedi.
Yeah, it's perfect. I don't. That's why I don't get why people are complaining. I want to see a hero Jedi. Why are they always bad? Because it's 100 years before they're fucking corrupted by politics.
Yeah.
This is just showing the corruption started even before then, which is usually how it goes. So I don't know. Is that? I guess no one's really thinking too much into this, like we are.
They're not thinking about the politics aspect of it.
No. So, anyways, like I said, Vernestra needs May to help find her pupil. She lies to the Senate and the Council, framing Soul for what happened to cover up her failures of creating the stranger. But we get an interesting scene because earlier in the episode, we saw Vernestra was trying to contact somebody. And just like how we got the cameo of Darth Plagueis to tease season 2, the show ends with Yoda.
Yep.
Now, the only thing I have to say to this is we got to blame Yoda for all of this.
Why?
Yoda knew all this shit was going on for years and did nothing about it.
But does he know?
I think he knew. He's a smart man.
I don't know, though, because Palpatine was able to mask himself. He couldn't sense Dooku was out there. Had no idea Darth Maul was out there.
You don't think he knew that Palpatine was Sidious? I feel like he might have known.
No.
He just didn't do nothing about it.
I think towards the end, he started to piece it together. But at that point,
I think he knew the
too
Jedi
late.
were already too fucked in politics to do anything about it. Without
maybe he reached a point where he's like, I don't care. I'm still going to try to do the good thing, but I can't stop what's about to happen.
But I'm just like, bro, if you find out that Vernestra, or if you know that there's some corruption going on and you still didn't do anything for 100 years, my man, I'm looking at you, Yoda.
Yeah,
I'm blaming him.
I don't know. We'll have to see in season 2 where it picks up with what she tells him.
It'll probably be like the Kiadi Mundi, where obviously there was a conspiracy and a lie, so they didn't know.
Yeah.
But Yoda is just so smart. I feel like he saw all this. He had to have seen something that was telling him otherwise, but he just didn't do anything about it, I guess, not to cause a scene.
Or it's one of those things, it happened so long ago before the prequels, he didn't have the abilities he had during the prequels. He wasn't powerful enough to sense those things.
Maybe, but with how powerful his species is in general, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. For now, I'm going to leave hope that he is not to blame for everything.
I'm blaming him.
I don't know yet.
Fuck you, Yoda. Anyways, I'm done ragging on Yoda. I like Yoda. So yeah, that's the end. That was the finale of the show. Mark, do you want to have any do you have any ideas for what could happen in season 2 that we haven't already discussed, or things you want to see?
I think season 2, just because of where Ahsoka is going with witches and Abeloth, I'm pretty sure we're getting Abeloth with Ahsoka, 100%. I think season 2 is going to allude to more of that side of the Force. And then, I think it'll be much more based on the dark side. Even the corruption of the Jedi is technically dark side because you're lying to everybody. But I think we're going to get more of where Plagueis fits in. And then, do the Jedi make a game plan to go after Quamir, or does she kind of just act like he doesn't exist? And then it's a whole different thing where, you get that underlying story of Osha and May trying to find each other again. Well, Osha trying to find May because May doesn't know she exists. But then you get also the dark side aspect of it. Is Plagueis trying to kill him? Is he watching him? Is he his master? Do they learn of Plagueis and then it's another cover-up? That there's this other overseeing dark side user that they knew about?
What more did Yoda ignore?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I hope we get a season 2, and I hope we get answers to those questions, because I don't know. I feel like had this show come out and been all 8 episodes at once, there would not have been the backlash we got.
No.
Because now with the backlash we got, like, there's the possibility we don't get a season 2, which I'm sure there's some people out there that are happy, but then, we don't get answers to all of these underlying questions that it left.
I think they did confirm that there's going to be a season 2. But I don't know if there's going to be more than that.
Yeah. I mean, another season is really all you need to kind of tie everything up.
Maybe. But so that kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about is obviously I want to see more of the Stranger's past. I want to learn his name so I don't have to keep calling him the Stranger.
It's Kumir.
His real name. What Darth is he, if he is one? Or is he Ren? Because I'm still trying to figure out that Kylo Ren music thing.
I don't know.
That has to mean something. But anyways, I want to know more about him. I want to know what happened with Venestra and him. I do really want to see a relationship between him and Osha, because I want to see, with the Jedi, we've seen what happens when a Jedi has a relationship, because they're not supposed to have it. So I want to see the other aspect where how does it help fuel the dark side?
Yeah.
How does love fuel it?
Yeah, there's no issue with them having a love interest on the dark side. So how does that grow their strength?
And obviously, any relationship comes with complications and some issues that could help fuel your rage and anger.
Yeah. Or it's one of those things where, them having that kind of relationship creates a huge change in the dark side of the Force, which is why Plagueis is there, because it threatens his plans, because they've become more powerful than just a rule of 2, because they have that relationship type bond.
And that's kind of leading into another thing I was going to say is, what if Plagueis is watching, because there are going to be another rule of 2 in the dark side. What if it doesn't have to happen in season 2, but if we even possibly get a season 3, could we see the beginnings of Darth Sidious?
Yeah, if it goes long enough, because I think at this point he's not born yet.
Not yet, but if it goes long enough, like you said, could we see the beginnings of him, becoming Plagueis' apprentice and learning what he has to learn, unless Plagueis learns everything and that's what he teaches him to?
Well, I think there's
obviously going to the prequel.
I think there's a mix of that with Plagueis and Palpatine's relationship. Plagueis knew a lot and taught that to Palpatine, but then there was things that they tried to learn together that I don't think Plagueis, before he was killed by Palpatine, got to learn. I think Plagueis saved that himself.
Yeah. And we also don't know how old Palpatine really is. Maybe he already is alive and just already has the immortality thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. But if that is the case, it would be cool, really cool to see the Stranger and Osha kind of be like the Maul of this time.
Yeah.
Where they're in between the Jedi and the Sith. They're neither or. They're just their own thing in the Force. But they just embrace the dark side like Maul, obviously.
Yeah. That could be.
And could we even see the Stranger and Osha fight? Who was that? Who was Plagueis' master you were talking about?
Tenebrous.
What's his name? Could we see them fight Tenebrous and Plagueis, or Plagueis and Sidious already if he's young, like a younger Sidious?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then that's how,
it'd be interesting to see.
That's how we get the explanation of how they didn't exist come that timeline. But
I would like to see that.
Either one of those scenarios, Osha and Kumir, the Stranger, they're fucked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're going to end up dying by the end of the show.
Yeah.
Or something's going to happen. But I am definitely interested in seeing. I really want to see how Plagueis ties into this. I want to see if Yoda really plays any significant part other than just being a voice of the council. And that's really all I have. Do you have anything else?
I have one final thought.
Okay, because that's what we're getting into next, our final thoughts.
So I would like to point out that Thrawn requests that the witches he has use their dark magic to help him. In turn, the witch says to him, "The thread wills it." I think.
That was in the Ahsoka show?
Or the thread of destiny demands it, is what she said. So the thread was mentioned as a form of the Force before this show, and no one cared.
Yet here we are, bitches being bitches.
Yep.
That's interesting. I like hearing that. That's really cool. See, even I didn't know that at all. So that's really cool. I like the thread. So
yeah, I
didn't have an issue with it. Final thoughts I already talked about the last two podcasts, how good the combat is in this show. So I don't really have to speak on that anymore. They're just two little things I kind of had to talk about that I thought was weird that no one else is talking about, even the criticizers, I don't know. Have you seen how, I don't know if you pay attention to like episode titles.
Yeah.
Have you seen how uncreative the episode titles have been for this show?
Yes, they've been one word.
They've been awful.
But they have
it's like day,
into the
night.
overseeing story of the episode though. But
not really, other than it being day and night.
Yeah. But like the last episode 8, was called Acolyte.
Well, yeah.
Like you got to see
there was a couple
he
that
finally
were
got
okay,
his Acolyte.
It's like teach, corrupt. That's awful. Awful naming. You could do better than that, Leslie. Come on. And the other thing I wanted to say is for a Star Wars show, I do feel like the music was kind of mid.
Yeah, I feel like there was almost no music.
There was a couple, like the last episode had a couple like chorus tracks that were cool, but Star Wars is always known for its music, and this was the first Star Wars show I've ever seen that I didn't even notice the music at all.
Yeah, it wasn't really an integral part to like showing the emotion of scenes or showing like the color aspect of the scene, whether it being light or dark or happy or sad.
Yeah, it just didn't really do much. But those were the only things I really had to say, like criticism-wise. I talked about everything else. Overall, though, how did you feel about the Acolyte? Like, what would your final verdict be on it?
I think it was great. For me, I don't look at all the things people are complaining about. Like, I look at them now to, try and debunk their complaints. But I think as an overall story, it was a great story that tied into many different aspects of Star Wars, whether it was cartoons, the prequels, the sequels, the other shows that they've released. Like there was many things that they pulled at to tie it in. And I think it's also like I said before, like had they released it just all together, I think it would have been perceived a lot better.
Yeah. That is an interesting question because these shows coming out weekly, obviously they do it to keep people subscribed, but then you get a lot of unnecessary hate that probably wouldn't have been in the show if they would have just released all 8 episodes.
Yeah. But then it's one of those things like that gives time in between for people to talk about it, which then,
and as like content creators, we kind of want that.
Which, and whether it's good or bad, discussions that people have, it still has people watching it. So someone that's like saying like, oh, this show's awful. Someone else might be like, all right, well, I'm going to go watch it and see what I think. Getting them more views that regard too.
Well, and I think corporations especially need to understand this, that the internet is not reality. The internet is a small group of people on like a small vocal group of people. The majority of people probably watched the show and liked it. Or just didn't care enough to think about it like we all are.
Yeah, and didn't even know that there was people critiquing it and saying it was awful.
Yeah, exactly. So, personally, I like the interconnectivity of it. I liked how all of it is tying back into George Lucas's story. This is the most consents story Disney has told, even more than the sequels. This ties into George Lucas's films, in my opinion. So I like it. I think it's good. I want to see a season 2. I even want to see a season 3 if we can get one. I'm all for it. I want to see more from Leslie. And you know what? I think she did such a good job with the combat in this show that after seeing it, I would be okay with her doing a KOTOR series.
Oh, 100%.
I want to see, but this time, and this is what I'm saying, this is 100 years before the Phantom Menace. Of course, the Jedi are going to be corrupt, but if we get a KOTOR series, that's where we can see the Jedi as like superheroes. Like just straight good.
Yeah, they're
fighting evil.
They're fighting pure evil. That's it.
Yeah. So hopefully we get to see those things. I really hope the internet hate hasn't scared Disney off because, you know, Star Wars has been pretty much loved since the first season of The Mandalorian. So I hope that this doesn't scare them away to be like, uh-oh, here come the haters again. This show was good. Don't cancel it. If anybody listens to this, please don't cancel it.
No, give us season 2 at the most.
I want season 2 at least because there's so much interesting stuff that they're setting up. And if this show just gets canceled, it'll be one of the most like blue balls moments ever. I'll be very upset. So I love the show. I would watch it again because I thought it was that good. I won't watch the sequels again until we do the podcast for them.
No, but I'd watch it again now that they're all there and I can binge it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be stuff that I didn't catch.
And that's one thing I want to say is like maybe guys like people on the internet, maybe let's stop judging things so harshly so early on because this show definitely got a lot better.
Yeah.
If you didn't like the middle part, or not the middle part, some of the later episodes like 6 and 7, I could understand because 6 was kind of slow, but it was building a story. And 7 had questionable issues. But other than that, I think the whole show was great.
Yeah.
So I loved it. You have any final things you want to say, or are you satisfied, Mike?
I'm satisfied. I got my one thing about the thread out there, so.
Yeah. I'm satisfied too. Great show. We want to see a season 2. We #renew season 2. We stand with that. So while we're talking about hashtags, let's plug our social medias. You can pretty much find us at FireTruthCast on everything.
Yeah.
So X, Instagram, TikTok. Which, how's the TikTok been going?
Pretty good. We get the last one that I put up with the characters that I'd like to see or that we would like to see in the Deadpool movie, I think has 20 likes and about 800 views at this point. And I mean, we only have 2 videos up, so I mean, it's going to be a slow grind to get a following on there, but
that's still, I like that's for an early show. I like the numbers that we're getting.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about it. And now that I hope the audio quality is better, hopefully we can actually really start getting somewhere. So I hope everyone that's listening can take the journey with us. But yeah, you can find us at FireTruthCast on X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. If you're on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps a lot. Follow us on Spotify. And we'll be back momentarily for us, but obviously maybe a couple days for you, because we're going to be doing Deadpool 1 and 2 to coincide with Deadpool Wolverine's July 26th release date. So that's going to be it. Hopefully you guys have a good day. Hopefully we get an Acolyte season 2. Until then, we'll see you guys again in a galaxy far, far away.